And happy International Youth Day, everybody. My name is Chet, and I'm joined by my two friends, Marie Claire and Vina. Hey guys, how y'all doing?
Hey, we're doing good.
Hello, good to see you.
Great. So they're going to be here today, and we're going to talk a little bit about the youth movement, all of our roles in it, a little bit of the history of where we are with it now, and what some things we're going to be using in the future to create some transformative change. So first, I'd like to just step back a little bit and talk about youth involvement, youth events. There's been a lot of them. Can either of you tell me just a little bit about Youngo, a brief run over for anyone watching, and how it came to be and why it's so important for youth?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just kick it off here. And young people have been engaged in the UNFCCC process since the very beginning, so since 30 years already, since 1992. But more importantly, young people really wanted to have a voice when it comes to decision making, and that's why they formed themselves in some 12 years ago into the youth constituency called Youngo. Youngo is an observer constituency, basically a mechanism how young people can directly engage with the UNFCCC process and really actually have a voice when it comes to some of the most important decisions currently negotiated. And since then, Youngo grew and is a massive network now, really convening observer stakeholders, so non-party stakeholders, so everyone who is not representing the government.
Vina, anything to add on that?
I think I would not be able to do it better than Marie Claire over here, so I would leave it there.
Yeah, she's got the rundown down. So hopefully for our audience, this kind of gives it a lens of what the youth leaders in the space have been working with, what resources are out there, what groups there are to support their movements. Now, luckily, we were all a part of the EarthX Global Youth Summit back in April in Dallas, Texas, which is pretty amazing that we got that many people to Dallas, Texas. As someone from Dallas, it was a bit surreal. But we're really hoping to build on that momentum or from that event heading into COP27. And so let's talk a little bit about COP and kind of what we're up against when it comes to these processes and what power Youngo has to do anything about it. Vina, do you want to kick us off?
Absolutely. So if you look at the COP process, people are engaged in two very important buckets: the party stakeholders and non-party stakeholders. Now, Youngo brings together young people from the civil society, the non-party stakeholders. But at the Climate Youth Negotiator program, the one that we're going to talk about for the next few minutes as well, Marie Claire, me, and the rest of my team, we enable young people to be there as a part of party stakeholders, to be there as negotiators for their countries and to be meaningfully engaged. What was amazing is that we were also able to be there at Dallas at the Global Youth Summit by EarthX and March for Science and Youngo, which was brilliant because over there in the summit, you kind of brought together both the party stakeholders, party stakeholders, as well as the non-party stakeholders, basically the observers too. So that was really good to interact with all of them, because going into COP, it is really important to also take views and needs and demands from everybody from grassroots and really feed it into the process. And so we need all of them coming together.
Amazing. I love that. And yeah, like as you said, it's wonderful to have both of these types of parties in different spaces like global youth summits, events, but COP is the big deal, and we can get together and have a summit and plan towards it, which is the best that we can do. But y'all are taking a step ahead and finding new ways for young people to get their foot in the door. So I'd love if one of you could give me just a brief overview of the Climate Youth Negotiators program and where you're going with it.
Absolutely. So if you take a look at it, world leaders often come to us and say, young people, hold us accountable. Yes, you can protest on the streets. We will take pictures with you, and we will tell that we're working with you. We'll tell the world that you are a part of our priority. But it's always stopped there. It always stops there, and there's no way forward. We're often not really taken into consideration when it comes to decision making, sitting at the table right next to you, making the decision, because it is also our future. And this is exactly what the Climate Youth Negotiator Program is doing, bringing in that intergenerational equity and intergenerational justice, where young people whose future is also being decided at these climate multilateral processes, they need to be there at the table. They need to be allowed to make decisions too for their own future. And for that, we need to help them, because there is no capacity built for them at the moment. There is no process that is set up to help them be there and be engaged meaningfully. And that's exactly what we do at the Climate Youth Negotiator Program. So it's a global program. We work with almost all, the idea is to work with all countries of the world, but at the moment we have representation from all parts of the world. We have over 27 countries who have signed up, promising that they will engage their young people as a part of their negotiation teams at COP27. And we kicked it off, like I said, at Dallas at the Global Youth Summit, and it all started off from there, from April onwards, and it's brilliant how things have gone forward since then.
I'm so excited about it, and it's such a great foundation for what youth leaders need to have a voice in this space. And I think it's very noble to take on this project, because it's a huge project. For all those watching, these two work incredibly hard just so that our generation and the generations below us will have the chance to have a say at the largest global stage. And that in mind, Marie-Claire, could you just give me, like, when you're working on the CYNP, what is the dream scenario? Like 5 years from now, how could you imagine this being, and what could it look like? Marie-Claire, did you get that? Vina, do you want to jump in?
Yes, I think there's a small connection issue, so I'm going to take this. Yeah, so 5 years from now, I wouldn't even call it 5 years. Let's say in the next couple of years, what we really want is to have all the countries, the 196 countries of the convention of UNFCCC, being there as a part of our program, championing young people to be there in decision making in these multilateral processes for climate negotiations, and really empowering these young people. And we don't have to keep convincing them. It's not like advocacy. The time is done for advocacy right now. It's about action, and we need to make them accept, and we need to just move forward. And that's ideally what we would like. If we got 27 this year, we hope 196 next year.
Yes, I'm full with it. And we'll look to events like, the Global Youth Summit next year at EarthX to rally the troops and get other youth leaders in on this. And thanks for coming back, Marie-Claire. Are you good on connection? Can you hear me? Maybe not. That's okay. But I'm glad you're here anyway, because this is really, really exciting what y'all have been working on. And I think that this is such an amazing vehicle for transformative change. And when the day comes when all of those audience members out there can support, we will love for you to. And we do have a few questions. Whoever has the connection enough to answer them. We're going to go to how is the CYNP program helping vulnerable countries like island nations get youth negotiators more involved and empowered to make a difference?
I think that's a very important question that we need to answer over here. One of the primary reasons why the Climate Youth Negotiator Program also evolved is to really support island nations, climate vulnerable countries, to have their voice heard at these climate negotiations, because often they lack the resources to bring more trained negotiators into the space itself. And they're stressed, they are covering lots of thematic areas, and it's really hard for them to keep up with everything. So I know I hate to bring in the whole divide of global north, global south, but if you are in these spaces, if you are at a COP, you would see a very stark difference between how a country like Switzerland, let's say, which has a lot of resources, organizes itself and its negotiators, and how maybe a country from the Pacific, they are able to organize themselves. It's quite hard given that they don't have the resources. So what we do is we're taking at least one young person for every Pacific Island state to be trained as a part of the program. We're trying to get them funded to get to COP27 because it is also quite expensive to be there. So their travel, their accommodation, their subsistence, everything to be taken care of. So they're also equally there. They don't have to worry about, oh, how do I catch a cab? Like, should I take a bus in the morning that's going to bring me 1 hour late? Or can I quickly take a house that is closer to the venue so I can come faster? So they should not be worried about making all of these decisions on top of everything else that they have to do over there. So capacity building, ensuring that that transformative change is also brought through giving them the travel subsistence grants. That's something that we're really trying to do at the moment.
I love that. I remember at my first COP, it was actually my first COY, the Conference of Youth, Youngo's official pre-COP event. I was there and doing interviews on island nations, and I was baffled because I only met and talked to maybe 3 or 4 young people from island nations because, especially that year, it was supposed to happen in Chile. And so many island nations, it was easier for them to get to Chile, but when it was switched to Madrid, they couldn't get there as easier. And the resource problem is so dire for a lot of these island nations delegations that youth are left out of the picture a lot of the time. So I'm so glad that this is going to become an opportunity to build capacity, to bring more of those youth, bring more voices into the conversation. Because you're right, it shouldn't just be the global North people that are right in the area and then can get there as quickly as possible. It's for everybody, and everyone needs to have a voice at the table. So one more question, I think, and then we'll call it a day. But how would we define success?
So can I quickly mention something?
Oh, yes, Marie-Claire. Yes, welcome back. What's up?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry for my internet issues. Just something you talked about the dream, right? And so for me, the UNFCCC itself and the convention, all these negotiations are a vehicle for change, right? So basically, they want to ensure that we have a global framework where we can all act on climate. And also together we worked on the Science Not Silence campaign to really have science as the underlining, defining driver of change. And we also had just lately coming out in the recent IPCC report, the report which is basically summarizing the science and again giving us very, very alarming insights, what science is telling us. On the other hand, it's actually almost equal what young people have been demanding. And I think this is a very beautiful overlap where we have here between science and young people and kind of using different stakeholders to drive this change. And that's why I think it's so important to work with the island nations together, with young people together, with science together, and everyone really coming together. And we need, as Lina mentioned rightfully, we need people outside the process as observers who can build up the pressure, but we also need a bridge in the negotiations where we actually, for example, can close the demands we had with Science Not Silence directly at the table where it matters to drive these changes very quickly, because ultimately time is running out for us, right? And this also goes back to the question I'm seeing in the chat from Becca. So what defines success for COP27? Until COP26, we still negotiated the rulebook, basically the implementation of the Paris Agreement. It's easy to set goals, right? But then you have to have the frameworks and how to reach these goals. This is done now, and now we have to focus on the implementation, because this is what ultimately matters, right? The actions, and this is what what we also define as success. To have young people there driving together can drive, and I'm really looking forward to more intergenerational equity, especially as this is also the theme for today's International Youth Day. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Marie-Claire. Vina, any closing words before we jump off?
I think Marie-Claire beautifully summed it. It's all about intergenerational equity. It's not about young people versus the old. It's about coming together as all generations, because this is a collective problem. And maybe in a way we should even be looking at removing the whole generation barrier or the word generation in the space, because it should be about How can we be creative to find solutions? How can we find the solutions for all of us together? It should just be about that. Then age should not be a part of the equation at all. And I think that would be my concluding thought over here.
I agree 100%. Well, you heard it here, folks. We're going to be hoping that soon enough we'll be looking towards COP, obviously, in the Climate Youth Negotiators Program, and then again next year at the Global Youth Summit, again at EarthX. So thank you all so much for joining today. Stay tuned to hear what these amazing folks are working on the ground and elsewhere. Thank you both, Veena and Marie Claire. I'm Chet again, and thank you all for joining today. Bye.